Killer is a very intimidating side to Dead by Daylight. Obviously, you have the two sides of the ball. You've got survivors and you've got killers. And killers is arguably just a little bit more intimidating simply because of the fact that it is a 4v1 situation. You have a lot more to manage in terms of time, in terms of resources, in terms of everything going on in the game as a killer. For example, you have to manage gens for survivors and totems if you are running hexes. There's a lot going on here, but I've compiled this list of tips and tricks that is going to help you all if you're getting into killer, if you're brand new to the game and want to try killer. It's going to help you win more games and improve your killer gameplay overall. Now, to note before we get into everything is this is a very basic guide. This is not going into builds and it's not going into the individual power-ups of each particular killer. We will briefly touch on power-ups just in terms of one of the tips and tricks, but overall this is going to be mostly tips that you can apply to all the different killers. So no matter who you're picking up and playing, you're going to be able to use these to improve your gameplay. So my first tip is just simply picking a killer that fits your playstyle. There are a ton of different killers in DBD and they all have different power-ups, meaning each of them plays just a little bit differently than others. They all have similarities and they all play somewhat the same, but the power-ups are what really changes them. So it's important to note what your skill level is going into it. Perhaps you've been playing DBD for a while and you briefly played killer, or you know, you're doing this fresh, you're getting right into the game and you want to play somebody and just have a good time. So it's important to really know what you're getting into and what style of gameplay you like. Perhaps you like stealth, you know, the pig's very good for stealth, or Ghostface would be very good for stealth, or maybe you want a power-up killer, somebody like Nurse, like Blight, like Hag, something that just relies heavily on their powers. It's also worth noting that certain killers, because of their powers, are going to play dramatically different than other killers. So if you're going to main something like Nurse or like Hag or like Blight, you're going to be relying a lot on the power, and that is going to change how those play fundamentally versus playing something like Wraith, Trapper, Michael. All of those killers play very similarly. They just have slight variations in their power-ups. But, you know, Nurse with the blinks constantly or Hag with the teleports, that plays dramatically different than something like Trapper or Wraith. So that is also something to note. So when you get into the early game scenario, you're going to want to immediately start looking for survivors. This is pretty apparent because your objective is to kill all of the survivors in the game, but don't start looking right around yourself. There's no point in doing this because survivors are not going to spawn right on top of you. They're going to spawn farther into the map. So it's best to just start walking toward the farthest point of the map where a generator is located and check all the gens along the way. This is going to give you an indication of where they are. Obviously, you don't just want to V-line for the farthest gen because they may not even be there, but looking side to side along the way, checking the other generators, this is going to help you locate them very quickly, which is super important because you want to be applying pressure early. If you are not applying pressure, everybody's working on gens and you're not getting a whole lot done. Now, once you find somebody, it's important to learn how to chase and understand when you should break from a chase. So obviously you're going to want to try and get a hit as quickly as possible, but if this survivor is very good, they're running you around in circles and you're not getting a whole lot done, the whole time you're doing that, other survivors are going to be working on generators, and by the time you finally get this guy knocked down, because they'll eventually run out of resources, you'll be able to knock them, they might have 2-3 generators done already and you wasted a ton of time. So it's worth noting that if you're getting run around in circles and you're having a tough time getting one particular survivor down, just leave them. Make sure you get the hit and leave them be and go after other survivors. Start checking other generators, because at that point that survivor is now injured. You're going to be able to take them down more easily the next time you find them, or if you don't find them before they heal, they're going to have to take time not repairing generators to heal themselves, which puts you in a stronger situation. Another big tip is while you're in your chases, make sure you're listening. Make sure you're listening for other things around you. For example, if you're chasing a survivor through the map and you run by a gen and you hear that gen being worked on, don't just ignore that and keep chasing the survivor to get the down. Turn and try and get a hit on one of these survivors working on that gen, because the more people that are injured, the better you are. You're going to be in a much more powerful situation because, again, those survivors are going to want to heal so they don't go down as quickly, and that is going to give you more time in terms of not having people working on gen, more time to find more people, more time to get knocks, more time to get hooks, all that fun stuff. And this goes for injured survivors as well. If you're running through and there's an injured survivor in the area, you're likely going to be hearing them moaning and making noises, and that is going to allow you to locate them more quickly. And this is just something that's super important. Make sure you are listening very carefully to where these things are going on, because this is going to give you a lot of helpful information in regards to locating survivors and winning the game. A big thing is finishing what you started if possible. A lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people in the early game maybe will try to slug, or maybe they'll, try and go for all the downs before they hook people, and that just doesn't make a lot of sense in the grand scheme of things, because they can pick survivors up off the ground if you leave them for too long, and that just means you didn't get a hook and you didn't progress their hook stage, and you're just going to have a tougher time in the long run. So if you do get a knock, make sure that you are going for the hook, unless obviously there is a situation where a slug is valuable. If another survivor is right there and you're going to be able to get a hit or maybe even down them, it is a good idea to go for that particular character. It's just important to not over focus on getting all the survivors down before you get your hooks, because you need those hooks to kill the survivors and keep them from doing more gens. Also, this works in terms of chases as well. Finish what you start. If there is a situation where you can get another hit on a survivor, don't give up on that chase. Make sure you knock them and move on to the hook. That way you're not just hitting them and then moving on and not getting all the hooks possible. This is like a nice little balancing act in terms of knowing when to give up on a chase versus knowing when you can actually successfully get the down. This is just an important little balancing act, and a lot of it comes with just time and experience. Another thing that is super important is managing your generators on the map. Obviously, the survivors have to activate 5 generators in order to escape, so it's important for you as a killer to be able to make sure they're not getting these done as quickly as possible. Now, there are a ton of generators scattered throughout the map, and you're able to see all of them highlighted in red. And the best advice I can give you is locate a cluster. Typically, these are in the middle of the map that you're going to be able to find a cluster of these generators, and these are going to be very easy for you to patrol and not allow survivors to complete them, because if they start working on the outside generators in the perimeter of the map, they're going to have to, at the end game scenario, come to the generators that you've been keeping safe and protecting the whole game, and that is going to be a lot more challenging for them to actually complete. And what we call this is a 3-gen situation, where you've protected a cluster of gens that is very close together, so you can easily patrol them and keep survivors from completing them, and you're going to be able to get more downs and hooks as a result of this, because they are in such close proximity that you can get between them very quickly and really stop their progress. Another important tip that I can make is when you're hooking, don't face camp. Don't face camp. It's not going to do you any good, because the whole time you're staring at this survivor on the hook, you're not getting other survivors down, and they're just completing gens left and right. So at best, you're going to get a 1k in these types of situations, and it's just a waste of your time and the survivor's time. It just doesn't get you a whole lot. It's not worth it for the 1k. Now, proxy camping is something totally different. It's where you patrol around a hook. You check the surrounding area, and this makes sense depending on your situation in the game. If you are down and you need to get some more hooks, maybe you need to force a hook state, this makes sense. Also, you can use that hook as bait, and this is a smart tactic, but again, this is very situational. You're not doing this every time you get a hook. You're doing this if you're perhaps down in the game and you're just trying to secure a 1 or 2k game, and it's something that, again, very situational. You'll learn about it more as you play and experience different games and get in different situations. You're going to learn when this is appropriate and when this is not appropriate, and what you need to do in order to progress. Another tip is make mental notes. As you're playing, learn the different maps. Learn where certain things are located. Learn where pallets are in certain tiles. Learn how to chase through certain tiles. You don't want to be going into each map and forget all the information you previously had on that map, because then you're just going to get bodied by the survivors. Also, learning the different survivor perks, things like dead hard and how to play against a dead hard, or borrowed time, or decisive strike. All of these things are super important for your playing as a killer, and each time you encounter them, you're going to be able to make a mental note of that information and know how to play against it the next time around. And that really comes into my final tip in terms of playing killer, and that is just practice. The more you play killer, the better you're going to get at loops, the better you're going to get at chasing survivors, the better you're going to get at managing your gens, the better you're going to get at whatever particular killer you're going to be playing. You're going to just get better at the game the more you play it and the more you practice and use these tips that I've given you in order to get better as a killer. But But that is all I have for you guys. Let me know in the comments below if these tips were helpful to you, if you guys are learning killer, what killer you're learning, all that fun stuff, and leave a like and subscribe to the channel because it really helps out and gets more people involved and helps more people learn about DBD. Also, if you want to catch me playing DBD live, make sure you go over to the Twitch channel and check that out. We're playing there most weeknights. It is a great time, so check that out as well. But like I said, that is all I got for you guys today, and hopefully I'll see y'all in the fog.